In the grand theater of history, there are moments that redefine the balance of power. Moments when small, almost unnoticed forces gather strength, weaving the fabric of empires that will shape continents for centuries. One such story begins not in the halls of palaces adorned with gold, nor in the bustling streets of great metropolises, but in the rugged hills and forests of northwestern Anatolia, where the seeds of the Ottoman Empire were quietly taking root. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the echoes of horse hooves and distant clashes resonated across valleys that, for now, remained largely untouched by the larger ambitions of empires to the east and west. Hello and welcome to the Other Side Stories. Here, we travel beyond the usual headlines to explore the untold tales of world history, mysteries, turning points, and hidden connections that shaped our planet. If you love discovering how the past still echoes in our present, you're in the right place. Let's uncover the other side of history together. It is in this liminal space between the waning Seljuk influence and the creeping reach of the Byzantine Empire that a young frontier principality led by a man named Osman I began a story that would eventually span continents. Born around 1258, Osman inherited a modest but strategically placed territory from his father, Ertugrul, in the region known as Bithynia. The political landscape of Anatolia at this time was fractured. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum had splintered under pressure from internal strife and Mongol incursions, leaving a mosaic of independent beyliks or principalities, each vying for survival and influence. Osman, astute and ambitious, understood that opportunity often arises from the vacuum of power, and he began consolidating alliances with neighboring tribes, carefully balancing diplomacy with force, forging the foundations of what would become a remarkable dynasty. Life on the Anatolian frontier was harsh, and leaders like Osman had to be more than just skilled warriors. They had to be shrewd politicians and visionary strategists. The Ottomans' early military campaigns were modest, targeting weakened Byzantine strongholds and rival beyliks. Yet, each conquest was deliberate, not merely for plunder, but for establishing secure borders, acquiring resources, and asserting legitimacy. The early Ottomans' reputation as skilled horsemen and resilient fighters began to spread, earning respect and, at times, fear among both allies and adversaries. The rise of Osman's principality cannot be understood without acknowledging the spiritual undercurrents of the time. The frontier of Anatolia was steeped in a particular strain of Sufism, a mystical interpretation of Islam that emphasized personal devotion, moral discipline, and communal cohesion. Osman's leadership intertwined martial prowess with spiritual authority, presenting himself not only as a temporal leader, but as a spiritual guide, a warrior of faith. This dual identity helped solidify loyalty among his followers, who were motivated not merely by allegiance to a ruler, but by a sense of participating in a sacred struggle, a pattern that would continue to define the Ottoman ethos for generations. As Osman's influence grew, so did the complexity of the region. The Byzantine Empire, once the unchallenged power in the area, was now a shadow of its former self, riddled with internal conflicts and external pressures. The empire's territories were fragmented, its military weakened, and its political leadership often distracted by intrigues in Constantinople. This vulnerability created openings that Osman and his successors would exploit with remarkable skill. Each raid, each small-scale siege was a step toward not just survival, but expansion, and over time, these incremental victories laid the groundwork for the empire's broader ambitions. Osman's son, Orhan, succeeded him around the early 14th century, and under his guidance, the fledgling state transitioned from a principality into a more organized political entity. Orhan understood that to grow, the Ottomans needed not only martial success, but also effective governance, administrative structures, and strategic marriages. Bursa, captured in 1326, became the first significant urban center under Ottoman control, serving as both a political capital and a commercial hub. The city's acquisition marked a turning point, signaling that the Ottomans were no longer mere raiders on the frontier, but emerging rulers capable of holding and administering territory. The capture of Bursa also symbolized the Ottomans' increasing sophistication in siege warfare and diplomacy. They developed techniques to isolate cities, negotiate surrenders, and integrate diverse populations into their domain. This capacity to combine military strategy with administrative acumen set the Ottomans apart from many contemporary powers who often relied solely on brute force or intimidation. By accommodating local elites and ensuring relative stability, the Ottomans cultivated loyalty and minimized resistance, a hallmark of their enduring statecraft. Trade and economic expansion played a crucial role in the Ottomans' rise. Situated at the crossroads between Asia and Europe, Anatolia was a conduit for commerce, ideas, and culture. By controlling key trade routes, the Ottomans could levy taxes, support urban development, and fund further military campaigns. The growth of markets, artisan communities, and agricultural productivity under early Ottoman rule helped secure the economic foundations of the empire. This practical approach to governance demonstrated that military conquest alone was insufficient. The real power lay in creating structures that could sustain long-term growth and adaptability. The Ottomans' early conquests also positioned themselves as intermediaries between competing powers. As the Byzantine Empire weakened, neighboring Turkish beyliks and European powers recognized the Ottomans as both a threat and a potential partner. Through careful diplomacy, the Ottomans forged alliances when advantageous and engaged in calculated conflicts when necessary. This flexibility, balancing pragmatism with ambition, became a defining feature of their strategy. Unlike many states that overextended themselves, the Ottomans measured risk and opportunity with keen insight, often turning apparent weaknesses into advantages. Religious legitimacy continued to bolster their authority. The Ottomans claimed to be protectors of Sunni Islam, positioning themselves as champions of faith in a region fragmented by competing interpretations and sects. This identity resonated deeply with Muslim populations in Anatolia and the Balkans, attracting volunteers, skilled artisans, and administrators who sought both spiritual fulfillment and material opportunity. By merging religious purpose with political ambition, the early Ottomans cultivated a sense of destiny, an aura of inevitability that would accompany their expansion across centuries. Military organization evolved as well. The Ottomans were among the first to systematically incorporate diverse groups into their armed forces, including cavalry units drawn from nomadic tribes and infantry recruited from conquered populations. The recruitment of Ghazis, warriors motivated by both profit and faith, allowed the Ottomans to project power far beyond the borders of their original territory. Over time, this approach developed into more formalized military institutions, creating a disciplined, versatile force capable of sustaining campaigns across Anatolia, the Balkans, and eventually the Middle East. Orhan's reign also marked the beginning of administrative innovation that would characterize Ottoman governance. He introduced systems for tax collection, land tenure, and legal adjudication that blended local traditions with centralized authority. By granting timars, or landholdings, to loyal soldiers and administrators, the Ottomans ensured that power was both incentivized and accountable. This system reinforced loyalty, provided a steady revenue stream, and established a network of officials invested in the stability and growth of the state. The Ottomans' expansion into Europe began cautiously but decisively. By crossing the Dardanelles into Thrace, they established a foothold in the Balkans, exploiting the fractured political landscape and the weakened Byzantine defenses. Strategic fortresses, alliances with local rulers, and calculated campaigns allowed them to consolidate territory without provoking overwhelming retaliation. Each conquest demonstrated the Ottomans' capacity for patience, strategy, and adaptation, traits that would define their empire for centuries. Cultural assimilation and integration was equally significant. Conquered populations were often allowed to maintain religious and social practices under Ottoman oversight, creating a multi-ethnic, multi-religious state that could function despite its diversity. The millet system, though formalized later, had its roots in these early policies, reflecting a pragmatic approach to governance that minimized rebellion and maximized stability.
By respecting local traditions while asserting overarching authority, the Ottomans built loyalty and a sense of shared purpose among diverse communities. As the 14th century progressed, the Ottomans faced both external and internal challenges. Rival beyliks sought to reclaim lost territory, European powers occasionally intervened, and internal succession disputes threatened cohesion. Yet, the combination of flexible diplomacy, military acumen, economic strategy, and religious legitimacy allowed the Ottomans to navigate these challenges effectively. Each crisis tested the resilience of the nascent empire, forging stronger institutions and a more cohesive identity. The consolidation of Anatolia and the gradual expansion into the Balkans laid the foundation for the empire's most ambitious campaigns in the centuries to come. Leaders like Murad I, Mehmed I, and Bayezid I would build upon Osman and Orhan's achievements, transforming a frontier principality into a transcontinental empire.
By the mid-14th century, the Ottomans had become a formidable presence on both sides of the Bosporus. The strategic location of Constantinople, the gateway between Europe and Asia, loomed large in their ambitions. While the city itself remained under Byzantine control, its surrounding territories increasingly fell under Ottoman influence. The gradual encirclement of Constantinople exemplified the Ottomans' long-term strategic thinking. Rather than rushing into a direct confrontation with a still powerful Byzantine stronghold, they strengthened their position, secured resources, and cultivated alliances, ensuring that when the moment arrived, they would strike with overwhelming force. Murad I, who ascended to power in 1362, exemplified the combination of military genius and administrative foresight that had become characteristic of the Ottoman leadership. He expanded Ottoman territory into the Balkans, capturing key cities such as Adrianople, modern-day Edirne, which became the new Ottoman capital in Europe. This relocation was not merely symbolic. It facilitated the administration of newly conquered territories and positioned the Ottomans to project power deeper into the European continent. Murad also introduced significant military reforms, including the establishment of the Janissary Corps, an elite infantry force recruited through the Devshirme system. These soldiers, drawn from Christian families in the Balkans, were converted to Islam and trained to serve the empire loyally, creating a disciplined and highly effective military backbone that would define Ottoman power for centuries. The Janissaries represented more than just military innovation. They were a tool of social and political engineering. By recruiting young men from conquered populations and educating them within the Ottoman system, the empire could integrate diverse communities while simultaneously creating a class of soldiers whose primary loyalty lay with the Sultan. This clever mechanism reinforced central authority and mitigated the risk of regional uprisings, a problem that had plagued many medieval states. It also allowed the Ottomans to field a professional, standing army capable of rapid mobilization and sophisticated tactics, a significant advantage over the feudal levies of neighboring powers. Murad's reign also demonstrated the Ottomans' pragmatic approach to diplomacy and conflict. In addition to military campaigns, he forged alliances through marriage and negotiation, incorporating regional leaders into the Ottoman administrative framework. The combination of coercion and collaboration became a hallmark of Ottoman statecraft. Rather than attempting to dominate every territory by force, they recognized the value of local knowledge, authority, and cooperation. Conquered leaders who pledged loyalty were often allowed to maintain certain privileges, ensuring smoother transitions and reducing resistance. The Battle of Kosovo in 1389 marked a defining moment in the Ottomans' European expansion. Facing a coalition of Serbian forces under Prince Lazar, Murad I demonstrated both strategic insight and ruthlessness. Although the battle resulted in his death, the Ottoman forces ultimately prevailed, solidifying their dominance in the region. The engagement exemplified the combination of tactical flexibility, disciplined troops, and strategic foresight that had become characteristic of Ottoman military campaigns. It also established a precedent for the empire's approach to succession, with leaders prepared to maintain momentum and continuity even in the face of personal loss. Beyond the battlefield, the Ottomans invested in the consolidation of administrative structures. Provincial governance was strengthened, taxation systems standardized, and legal codes codified.
These measures ensured that newly conquered territories could be integrated efficiently, creating a coherent empire despite its geographical and cultural diversity. Urban centers flourished under Ottoman rule, with markets, mosques, and public works symbolizing both the state's power and its commitment to societal stability. The empire's ability to balance expansion with governance became a key factor in its longevity, distinguishing it from other medieval polities that often collapsed under the strain of rapid conquest. The Ottomans' expansion also had profound cultural implications. As they absorbed diverse populations across Anatolia, the Balkans, and the Middle East, the empire became a melting pot of languages, religions, and traditions. This cultural plurality was managed through pragmatic policies that allowed communities a degree of autonomy, fostering loyalty while maintaining overarching Ottoman authority. The millet system, formalized in later centuries, had its roots in these early practices, providing a framework for religious and communal self-governance that strengthened societal cohesion. Such policies reflected a sophisticated understanding of human societies, acknowledging the complexities of governance in multi-ethnic and multi-religious environments. Economically, the empire thrived by controlling key trade routes connecting Europe, Asia, and the Mediterranean. The Ottomans capitalized on their strategic position to collect tariffs, regulate commerce, and encourage market growth. Cities like Bursa, Edirne, and later Constantinople became vibrant commercial hubs, attracting merchants, artisans, and scholars from across the region. This economic prosperity provided the resources necessary to sustain military campaigns, fund public works, and support a growing bureaucratic apparatus. It also reinforced the empire's legitimacy, as populations experienced tangible benefits from Ottoman governance. The Ottomans' approach to law and justice further strengthened their rule. By codifying legal practices that drew from Islamic principles while accommodating local customs, they created a system that was both adaptable and authoritative. Judges, administrators, and scholars were appointed to oversee these processes, ensuring that the law functioned effectively across vast territories. This legal framework contributed to societal stability, reinforcing the perception of the Sultan as both a temporal and moral authority. As the 15th century approached, the Ottoman Empire faced challenges from both Europe and Asia. The Byzantine Empire continued to struggle, the Hungarian kingdom resisted Ottoman encroachment, and the rise of new powers in the East threatened regional stability. Yet, the Ottomans' combination of military prowess, administrative skill, and diplomatic acumen allowed them to navigate these pressures successfully. Each challenge became an opportunity to refine strategies, test institutions, and demonstrate the empire's resilience. The early Ottoman sultans were also keen patrons of culture and architecture. They understood that physical monuments could symbolize power, legitimacy, and continuity. Mosques, bridges, caravansaries, and palaces were constructed not only for practical purposes, but also to convey the empire's grandeur and vision. These structures fostered civic pride, attracted skilled artisans, and reinforced the cultural identity of the state. By investing in architecture and public works, the Ottomans demonstrated that an empire's strength was measured not solely by its armies, but also by the vitality of its cities and the loyalty of its people. Education and scholarship were encouraged, with the establishment of schools, libraries, and centers for religious learning. Scholars from diverse backgrounds were welcomed, contributing to a vibrant intellectual environment that enhanced administrative capacity, legal understanding, and cultural sophistication. The Ottomans recognized that knowledge was a form of power, and by cultivating education, they ensured that the state could adapt to changing circumstances and absorb new ideas. The capture of Constantinople in 1453 by Mehmed the Conqueror, known as Mehmed the Conqueror, represented the culmination of a century-long process of strategic expansion, institution building, and cultural integration. This event transformed the Ottomans from a regional power into a transcontinental empire, controlling a city that had been a symbol of imperial authority for over 1,000 years. The conquest demonstrated the effectiveness of Ottoman military innovation, including the use of large cannons and disciplined infantry formations, as well as the careful planning and coordination of logistics, intelligence, and diplomacy. Constantinople's fall also had profound psychological and symbolic effects. It signaled the end of the Byzantine Empire, reshaped the balance of power in Europe and Asia, and established the Ottomans as a dominant force in global politics. The city, renamed Istanbul, became the imperial capital, serving as the political, economic, and cultural heart of the empire. Its strategic location facilitated control over trade routes, naval power in the Mediterranean, and administrative coordination across diverse provinces. The consolidation of Istanbul was accompanied by an ambitious program of urban development. Mehmed II invited architects, artisans, and scholars from across the empire and beyond to contribute to the city's transformation. Walls were repaired, mosques and palaces constructed, and infrastructure improved to accommodate a growing population. The revitalization of Istanbul exemplified the Ottoman approach to governance, combining military conquest with cultural and economic investment to create durable, integrated, and prosperous centers of power. The early Ottomans also fostered a sense of identity that transcended regional and ethnic boundaries. Through the promotion of a shared legal system, religious observance, and loyalty to the Sultan, they cultivated cohesion among diverse populations. Military service, administrative duties, and participation in trade networks reinforced this identity, creating a sense of belonging that strengthened societal stability. The integration of conquered peoples into the fabric of the empire minimized rebellion and facilitated long-term expansion.
The Ottoman Empire's rise was not a product of brute force alone. It was a carefully orchestrated combination of military innovation, administrative sophistication, and cultural adaptability. As the empire expanded, it encountered a mosaic of peoples, each with distinct languages, religions, and customs. The Ottomans' ability to govern such diversity without resorting to wholesale suppression became one of their most enduring strengths. Local elites were often incorporated into the administrative framework, and religious communities were allowed to manage internal affairs under the oversight of Ottoman authorities. This approach not only minimized resistance, but also fostered loyalty, enabling the empire to maintain stability over vast territories. Trade and economic networks flourished under Ottoman rule, facilitated by the empire's strategic position at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and the Mediterranean. The Ottomans controlled key trade routes, ensuring the flow of goods, ideas, and culture. Cities like Edirne, Bursa, and later Istanbul became thriving commercial hubs, attracting merchants, artisans, and scholars from across the known world. The collection of taxes and tariffs funded military campaigns, public works, and the administration of a sprawling empire. Economic prosperity reinforced the legitimacy of Ottoman rule, demonstrating that allegiance to the Sultan brought tangible benefits to subjects. The Ottomans' military organization continued to evolve in response to both internal and external pressures. The Janissary Corps, originally established under Murad I, grew into a formidable standing army. These troops were rigorously trained, disciplined, and loyal, often serving as the Sultan's personal guard as well as the backbone of the empire's military campaigns. Cavalry units, comprised of both nomadic horsemen and professional soldiers, complemented the infantry, allowing the Ottomans to conduct coordinated operations across varied terrain. The combination of infantry, cavalry, and artillery gave the Ottomans a decisive edge over many of their rivals. Strategic marriages and alliances remained a critical aspect of Ottoman statecraft. By marrying into prominent families and forging alliances with local rulers, the empire was able to expand influence without resorting to constant warfare. These alliances were not only political, but economic and cultural, facilitating trade, stabilizing borders, and integrating new populations. The Ottomans understood that sustainable power required more than conquest. It required the ability to bind people together under a shared system of governance and mutual benefit. Religious legitimacy continued to play a central role in consolidating Ottoman authority. The empire presented itself as the protector of Sunni Islam, positioning the Sultan as both a political leader and a spiritual guide. This dual role reinforced loyalty among Muslim populations, while providing a moral framework for governance. Religious institutions, including mosques, schools, and charitable foundations, were established throughout the empire, creating centers of learning and social support that strengthened communal bonds. The integration of religious authority with political power became a defining characteristic of Ottoman governance. The conquest of key Balkan territories further solidified the empire's European presence.
Cities such as Sofia, Plovdiv, and Thessalonica were incorporated into the Ottoman domain, bringing both strategic advantages and valuable economic resources. The empire's expansion into Europe was methodical, emphasizing fortified positions, the establishment of administrative centers, and the integration of local populations. The Ottomans balanced the use of force with diplomacy, often negotiating terms of surrender that preserved local customs and leadership structures, thereby reducing the likelihood of rebellion. Art and culture flourished alongside military and administrative development. The Ottomans patronized architecture, literature, and the visual arts, fostering a unique blend of Turkish, Persian, and Byzantine influences. Mosques, bridges, and palaces were constructed not merely as functional structures, but as symbols of imperial grandeur and cultural synthesis. Artisans and scholars from diverse regions were encouraged to contribute their skills, creating a rich cultural milieu that reinforced the empire's identity and projected power to both subjects and rivals. Education and scholarship were integral to the empire's long-term stability. Schools, libraries, and centers of religious learning were established in major cities, promoting literacy, legal knowledge, and intellectual development. Scholars served as advisors, judges, and administrators, providing expertise that enhanced governance and facilitated the integration of newly conquered territories. The Ottoman commitment to education helped create a bureaucracy capable of managing a vast, diverse empire, ensuring that power was exercised effectively and efficiently. Infrastructure development was another cornerstone of Ottoman strategy. Roads, bridges, and caravanserai facilitated trade and troop movements, connecting distant provinces to the imperial center. The maintenance of these networks demonstrated a forward-looking approach to governance, recognizing that military power alone was insufficient without the logistical capacity to support administration and commerce. Public works not only served practical purposes, but also reinforced the visibility of Ottoman authority, demonstrating that the empire could provide security, prosperity, and order. The Ottomans also implemented sophisticated taxation and land management systems. The Timar system, in which land was granted to military officers in exchange for service, ensured that loyalty and responsibility were intertwined. Tax collection was organized to fund the state's needs without overburdening populations, balancing the imperatives of revenue with social stability. These policies created a sustainable economic base, allowing the empire to finance military campaigns, public works, and administrative structures over extended periods. Diplomacy with neighboring powers remained a dynamic aspect of Ottoman expansion. The empire engaged with European kingdoms, the Byzantine remnants, and regional Muslim states, navigating complex political landscapes with pragmatism and foresight. Treaties, marriages, and temporary alliances allowed the Ottomans to secure borders, avoid unnecessary conflicts, and focus resources strategically. This adaptability in foreign policy reinforced the empire's resilience, enabling it to survive and thrive amid a volatile geopolitical environment. The rise of Mehmed II, who became Sultan in 1451, marked a pivotal phase in the empire's trajectory. Determined to capture Constantinople, Mehmed meticulously prepared for the siege, consolidating resources, assembling a large army, and developing innovative military technology, including massive cannons capable of breaching the city's formidable walls. The siege of 1453 was not a spontaneous assault, but the culmination of decades of strategic planning, political maneuvering, and incremental territorial expansion. The fall of Constantinople had profound implications beyond its immediate military significance. It symbolized the end of the Byzantine Empire, altered trade routes, and reshaped the balance of power in both Europe and Asia. By establishing Istanbul as the new imperial capital, Mehmed II created a hub from which the Ottomans could administer a vast and diverse empire, project naval power in the Mediterranean, and control key economic corridors. The transformation of the city into a vibrant, multi-ethnic metropolis reflected the empire's broader approach to integration and governance. Ottoman governance in the post-Constantinople era emphasized centralization and administrative efficiency. Provincial governors were appointed to oversee territories, ensuring adherence to imperial policies while allowing a degree of local autonomy. Legal codes were refined to address the complexities of a multi-ethnic empire, and tax systems were adapted to accommodate diverse economic practices. This combination of centralized authority and localized administration enabled the Ottomans to maintain stability across expansive and culturally heterogeneous regions. Cultural and religious integration continued to be a strategic priority. Non-Muslim communities were organized into millets, which allowed them to manage internal affairs, practice their religion, and maintain social cohesion under Ottoman oversight. This system facilitated coexistence, reduced tensions, and reinforced the perception of the Sultan as a fair and capable ruler. By accommodating diversity, the Ottomans strengthened loyalty and minimized resistance, ensuring the longevity of their empire. Military innovation remained central to Ottoman power. The combination of disciplined infantry, elite cavalry, and advanced artillery allowed the empire to project force effectively and adapt to new challenges. The Ottomans also developed naval capabilities, securing control over critical maritime routes in the Aegean and Mediterranean. These developments not only enhanced territorial expansion, but also facilitated trade, communication, and the movement of people, further integrating the empire's diverse regions. Economic prosperity underpinned the empire's expansion. Trade networks connecting Europe, Asia, and the Middle East were protected and regulated, ensuring the flow of goods and revenue. Markets, artisan guilds, and agricultural production were encouraged, creating vibrant urban and rural economies. This economic vitality supported military campaigns, public works, and cultural initiatives, reinforcing the empire's legitimacy and enabling sustained growth. The Ottomans' approach to law and justice balanced Islamic principles with local customs. Courts, judges, and legal scholars ensured that disputes were resolved fairly and consistently, contributing to societal stability. Legal and administrative institutions provided continuity amid expansion, enabling the empire to govern effectively across diverse territories. This emphasis on justice and order
The Ottomans' early consolidation and expansion demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for adaptability. Unlike many empires that relied solely on military conquest or inherited authority, the Ottomans combined strategic vision with careful attention to the details of governance, culture, and society. They understood that the durability of an empire depended as much on the loyalty of its subjects as on the skill of its armies. This understanding shaped every aspect of Ottoman policy, from taxation and legal structures to education and religious administration. One of the key factors in the empire's stability was the systematic integration of conquered peoples. The Ottomans employed a pragmatic approach, recognizing the value of local knowledge, traditions, and governance structures. Local rulers, merchants, and religious leaders were often incorporated into the administrative system, preserving continuity while ensuring loyalty to the Sultan. Communities were given the ability to maintain internal affairs under the oversight of Ottoman officials, creating a sense of autonomy that encouraged cooperation rather than rebellion. This approach to governance became a hallmark of Ottoman success, allowing the empire to flourish across diverse territories and cultures. The empire's military strength was closely tied to its administrative and economic systems. The Janissary Corps, once a modest innovation under Murad I, had evolved into a disciplined, professional army capable of executing complex campaigns across continents. Combined with highly mobile cavalry and effective artillery, the Ottoman military could respond to a wide range of threats. Logistics, intelligence, and planning were emphasized, ensuring that campaigns were not merely acts of force, but coordinated operations with clear strategic objectives. This capacity to plan and execute large-scale operations with precision distinguished the Ottomans from many contemporaneous powers. Naval power also became increasingly important. The Ottoman Empire's control of the Aegean and Mediterranean seas facilitated trade, military movement, and communication. The fleet allowed the empire to project power, defend trade routes, and engage in campaigns beyond the Anatolian and Balkan heartlands. Naval fortifications and shipbuilding innovations reflected the Ottomans' understanding that control of the seas was essential to sustaining a transcontinental empire. By investing in maritime capabilities, the empire ensured that its influence extended beyond land borders, reaching far-flung coastal cities and islands critical for commerce and strategic positioning. The Ottomans' approach to diplomacy was marked by flexibility and pragmatism. They engaged with European kingdoms, neighboring Muslim states, and remnants of the Byzantine Empire through treaties, alliances, and calculated interventions. This diplomatic agility allowed the Ottomans to secure borders, focus resources strategically, and manage complex political landscapes. The empire's leaders were adept at assessing opportunities and risks, often turning potential threats into advantages. By blending negotiation with military readiness, the Ottomans established a model of statecraft that allowed for sustained growth without overextension. Cultural and intellectual development was another pillar of Ottoman strength. The empire fostered education, scholarship, and the arts, creating a rich and diverse cultural milieu. Islamic scholarship was encouraged alongside scientific inquiry, literature, and artistic expression. Libraries, madrasas, and courts of learning provided both practical expertise for governance and avenues for intellectual growth. This emphasis on knowledge ensured that the empire could adapt to new challenges, absorb foreign ideas, and innovate in administration, law, and military affairs. Urban development played a crucial role in consolidating Ottoman authority. Major cities such as Bursa, Edirne, and Istanbul became centers of commerce, administration, and culture. Investments in infrastructure, public works, and civic architecture enhanced both the functionality and the prestige of these urban centers. Markets thrived, artisans produced goods for local and international trade, and roads, bridges, and caravanserais facilitated the movement of goods and people. The integration of economic vitality with administrative efficiency reinforced the empire's legitimacy and provided the resources necessary to sustain further expansion. The Ottomans also demonstrated foresight in integrating technological and tactical innovations. The use of heavy artillery in sieges, combined with disciplined infantry and cavalry maneuvers, allowed them to capture fortified cities and resist counterattacks effectively. Engineers, military advisors, and scholars contributed expertise to campaigns, ensuring that technology and strategy were aligned. This commitment to innovation gave the empire an edge over rivals and allowed for the sustained projection of power across varied terrains and against diverse opponents. The transformation of Istanbul following its capture in 1453 exemplified the Ottomans' strategic and cultural vision. The city became the political and administrative heart of the empire, serving as a hub for governance, commerce, and culture. Renovations, new constructions, and urban planning reflected the empire's priorities: security, economic vitality, and symbolic grandeur. Istanbul's strategic location allowed the Ottomans to control the Bosporus, access trade networks, and project power into both Europe and Asia. The city's evolution into a thriving metropolis underscored the Ottomans' ability to combine military conquest with long-term development and governance. Education, scholarship, and cultural patronage continued to flourish. Madrasas, libraries, and institutions for the arts attracted scholars, poets, and artists from across the empire and beyond. This intellectual investment strengthened administrative capacity, promoted social cohesion, and enhanced the cultural identity of the state. The Ottomans recognized that the cultivation of knowledge and culture was integral to sustaining a powerful and resilient empire. By nurturing intellectual and artistic life, they created a society capable of innovation, adaptation, and the effective management of a vast and diverse territory. The Ottomans' approach to governance emphasized balance. Military strength, administrative efficiency, economic vitality, and cultural integration were intertwined, creating a system capable of sustaining long-term expansion. The empire's leaders demonstrated a keen understanding of the interplay between power and legitimacy, authority and consent, force and diplomacy. Each policy and initiative was designed to reinforce others, creating a coherent, adaptable, and resilient state structure.
By the end of the 15th century, the Ottoman Empire had transformed from a modest frontier principality into a sophisticated transcontinental power. The foundations laid by Osman, Orhan, Murad I, and Mehmed II, encompassing military innovation, administrative competence, economic strategy, and cultural integration, enabled the empire to endure, expand, and influence the course of world history. The rise of the Ottomans illustrates how vision, pragmatism, and adaptability can convert opportunity into enduring power, shaping societies and civilizations across centuries. The Ottoman story during this period also reflects broader patterns in world history. The interplay between central authority and local governance, the integration of diverse cultures, and the balance of military, economic, and cultural strategies. Their rise demonstrates the importance of strategic patience, institutional foresight, and the cultivation of both loyalty and competence. While battles and conquests capture the imagination, the enduring power of the Ottomans lay in their ability to build institutions, manage diversity, and project authority over both people and territory.
The Ottomans' consolidation and expansion during the late 15th and early 16th centuries illustrate a rare combination of vision, resilience, and adaptability. They had transformed a modest Anatolian principality into an empire that spanned continents, encompassing diverse peoples, languages, and religions. This remarkable achievement was not accidental. It resulted from deliberate strategies in governance, military organization, economic policy, and cultural integration. Every decision, from the appointment of provincial governors to the construction of fortresses, reflected a long-term understanding of statecraft and empire building. One of the most significant aspects of Ottoman rule was their approach to diversity. Rather than imposing uniformity, they developed systems that allowed ethnic, religious, and social groups to maintain aspects of their traditional practices while remaining loyal to the Sultan. The millet system formalized this approach in later centuries, but its foundations were evident in the early policies of Osman, Orhan, and their successors. Religious leaders, local elites, and community institutions were co-opted into governance, creating a network of authority that extended the reach of the central state while respecting local customs. This pragmatic flexibility was instrumental in ensuring stability across vast and culturally heterogeneous territories. The empire's military capabilities continued to evolve, adapting to both technological innovations and the changing nature of warfare. The Janissary Corps became an elite professional force, highly trained and centrally loyal, while the integration of artillery and siege techniques allowed the Ottomans to capture formidable cities. Cavalry units maintained mobility and strategic flexibility, complementing infantry operations. The careful balance between offensive power and defensive security allowed the Ottomans to expand without overextending, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of operational planning and resource management. Economic strength was equally vital. By controlling trade routes linking Europe, Asia, and the Mediterranean, the Ottomans established themselves as both political and commercial power. Taxation systems were carefully administered to ensure revenue without provoking unrest, while markets, artisan guilds, and agricultural production were encouraged to flourish. Urban centers such as Bursa, Edirne, and Istanbul became thriving hubs of commerce and culture, reinforcing both the empire's economic base and its social cohesion. Prosperity was not merely a byproduct of conquest, but a deliberate element of state strategy, ensuring that expansion was sustainable and beneficial to the empire's subjects. The Ottomans also excelled in diplomacy. They engaged with European kingdoms, neighboring Muslim states, and other regional powers through treaties, alliances, and negotiation, often turning potential conflicts into strategic advantages. This diplomatic agility allowed the empire to consolidate gains, manage rivalries, and avoid unnecessary wars. Their ability to navigate complex political landscapes ensured that the empire remained resilient even amidst shifting alliances and the rise of new powers. Pragmatism, combined with military strength, enabled the Ottomans to extend influence far beyond the immediate territories of Anatolia and the Balkans. Culture and education were integral to Ottoman identity and governance.
Scholars, poets, artisans, and scientists were encouraged to contribute to the empire's intellectual and artistic life. Madrasas and libraries nurtured learning, while patronage of the arts created a cultural milieu that blended Turkish, Persian, and Byzantine influences. This emphasis on knowledge and creativity served practical purposes, training administrators and military officers, but it also reinforced the legitimacy and prestige of the state. By fostering a rich cultural environment, the Ottomans ensured that their empire was not only powerful, but sophisticated and enduring. Infrastructure development reinforced both economic and administrative control. Roads, bridges, caravanserais, and fortifications facilitated trade, troop movements, and communication across the empire. Investments in public works demonstrated the tangible benefits of Ottoman governance, enhancing legitimacy and fostering loyalty. Urban planning and architectural achievements projected power while serving functional needs, combining practicality with symbolism. Cities became centers of governance, commerce, and culture, embodying the empire's ability to integrate military, administrative, and social priorities. Legal and religious frameworks reinforced the empire's cohesion. Islamic law, complemented with local customs, provided a consistent framework for dispute resolution and governance. Judges, scholars, and administrators ensured that laws were applied fairly and uniformly, while religious authorities helped integrate moral and spiritual guidance into state structures. This integration of law, religion, and administration fostered stability and minimized social unrest, ensuring that the empire could govern effectively over a diverse population. The Ottoman rise also illustrates the importance of strategic vision. Each generation of leaders built upon the accomplishments of their predecessors, combining military conquest with institution building, economic management, and cultural development. Osman's initial consolidation of Anatolian beyliks laid the foundation. Orhan's expansion and urban development established government structures. Murad I and Mehmed II extended territorial reach while institutionalizing military and administrative systems. The careful sequencing of policies, campaigns, and reforms created momentum that carried the empire from a regional power to a transcontinental empire capable of influencing global affairs. Religious legitimacy, economic prosperity, military innovation, and administrative sophistication were mutually reinforcing. The Ottomans understood that the durability of an empire depended on balancing these elements. Faith inspired loyalty and social cohesion. Wealth funded campaigns and public works. Disciplined armies ensured security and expansion. And effective governance maintained order and integrated diverse populations. The interplay of these factors allowed the Ottomans to overcome challenges, manage complexity, and sustain expansion over centuries. The Ottoman approach to succession and governance further reinforced stability. Princes were trained in administration, military strategy, and diplomacy, preparing them to lead effectively. While succession disputes occasionally occurred, the empire's institutions mitigated the risks, ensuring continuity of authority. This careful management of leadership transitions prevented fragmentation and maintained the integrity of the state, even during periods of potential instability. Cultural integration continued to be a strategic asset. By embracing the diversity of their subjects, the Ottomans fostered a sense of belonging and loyalty. Religious and ethnic communities were allowed to maintain internal governance, traditions, and practices while recognizing the overarching authority of the Sultan. This balance of autonomy and central control enabled the empire to manage a wide range of populations effectively, minimizing unrest while maximizing participation in the economic, military, and social life of the state. The Ottoman success also rested on their capacity for adaptation. They incorporated innovations in military technology, administrative practice, economic policy, and cultural integration, learning from both successes and setbacks. The empire's ability to evolve in response to new challenges, whether internal dissent, external threats, or shifts in trade and technology, ensured that it remained resilient and capable of sustained growth. By the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire had solidified its position as a dominant global power. Its territories spanned Anatolia, the Balkans, parts of the Middle East, and North Africa. Cities such as Istanbul, Edirne, and Bursa served as administrative, commercial, and cultural hubs, while a complex network of roads, fortifications, and ports connected distant provinces. The empire's military, economic, and administrative systems were integrated, providing both stability and capacity for further expansion. Religious and cultural policies fostered cohesion across diverse populations, creating a durable social framework that supported the empire's longevity. The rise of the Ottoman Empire is a testament to the power of strategic vision, adaptation, and pragmatic governance. From a small frontier principality in Anatolia, it grew into a transcontinental empire capable of influencing the course of history for centuries. Military skill, administrative innovation, economic management, and cultural integration were intertwined, creating a system of governance that could withstand both internal and external pressures. The Ottoman story demonstrates that the enduring power of a state is not simply a function of conquest, but of careful planning, institution building, and the ability to integrate diverse peoples and resources into a cohesive whole. The legacy of the Ottoman Empire continues to resonate today, influencing politics, culture, and society across regions it once ruled. Its rise offers lessons in leadership, strategy, and the complexities of governing diverse populations. The story of Osman, Orhan, Murad, Mehmed, and their successors illustrates the importance of vision, pragmatism, and adaptability in shaping history. It reminds us that empires are not built overnight, but through deliberate choices, sustained effort, and the capacity to balance ambition with governance, innovation with tradition, and power with legitimacy. Thanks for watching the Other Side Stories. If you enjoyed this journey through history's hidden paths, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with fellow explorers. Your support helps us bring more forgotten stories to light. Until next time, keep wondering about the past that shapes our future.